All right, how are you guys doing? This is the first episode of the Get Psyched podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel, a clinical psychologist from Cal University. I'm here with Sophia and Elizabeth, and we are going to be talking about extremism. So a little bit of background. The 2020 analysis shows us that there has been almost 900 terrorist plots and attacks in the United States between 1994 and May 2020. This data shows that terrorism in the United States will likely increase greatly over the next few years in response to many economical factors. One of the most concerning variables is the presidential election, before and after. The president who is running our country is a serious thing, and it's important to a lot of people, which is understanding, but extremists in this case may resort to violence depending on the outcome of the election. Democrats and Republicans have used violence against each other and via protest or raising the possibility of escalating violence. And so I'm here with two experts on the topic. And first I'm gonna go to Sophia and I'm gonna ask her, how have you analyzed this topic?
Thank you, Emmanuel. So a little bit about myself. I'm Sophia. I'm a clinical social worker, and I'm studying behaviors in extremist groups and how they kind of function and are formed, and how they can impact society. So I'm going to be talking about three cognitive biases that I believe are kind of impacting and influencing the situation, which is very dire, as Emmanuel said. And so these three cognitive biases are confirmation bias, echo chamber effect, and fluency heuristic. So this first one, confirmation bias, is pretty common. It's something that we do pretty often in our daily lives. But it's pretty much when we hold a belief, and we hold to this belief pretty tightly, whether we realize it or we don't. And so any new information that we accumulate, we will try to fit into that belief. So we are conforming it pretty much. We're using all the information we receive to fit that belief, instead of trying to alter how we see that topic or our opinion. So it can be a little difficult when seeing different perspectives. And so I think it relates to extremism, because people in extremist groups, as the name would suggest, often have very extreme views. And so they are not really willing or sometimes able to look at biases outside their own opinions. And so that's why I think confirmation is a really prevalent one.
Just to, sorry to interrupt you, but that's hard that we grow up and we hear all these things and all these beliefs and we start to adopt these things that that we're told and that we're taught, and it's hard to kind of change our mindsets and look at different ways of going about things and listening to different perspectives, especially if we're passionate about these topics. And so what were the other biases that you kind of were thinking about?
The second one is echo chamber effect, and I think this one just sounds really cool. But I think this one contributes to extremists in that this effect acts, as it sounds, like an echo. And so people in extremist groups will often surround themselves with people that have the same beliefs, the same ideas. And so your beliefs and the people's beliefs around you act as like an echo. And so it comes back to you. You hear these beliefs, your ideas are reinforced, their ideas are reinforced. And so it kind of comes off as more powerful and stronger than if perhaps you're by yourself or you weren't in a group. And so in extremist groups, I see it a lot throughout the US, where people want to surround themselves with like-minded people, and their ideas, extremist ideas, become strengthened, and they kind of find camaraderie in that, as humans do in general, but particularly in extremist groups.
Right, and I know that we all want to, be in a group where we're accepted, and we're thought of as smart, and that we know, that we all know, that we all agree on things, and we all have similar beliefs. But in a way, this could be very this can also not be beneficial, and it could work against us. And so what was the last thing?
So the last bias is the fluency heuristic. And so this is one that you see most in group leaders, influential leaders, cult leaders, and also extremist leaders. And so this is the idea that how you present yourself, how you speak to others, how you lead your group is noticed. And so people who can speak well, who have a lot of charisma, and who just are all around good speakers, their ideas are going to take root in the minds of people who hear them. And so I think this is a pretty common idea, but a lot of very powerful extremist leaders have been good speakers. Maybe not good people, but they've been good leaders. And so that goes back to the idea of you can convey some pretty terrible ideas to good people, and it can be twisted in a way that these people understand and want to be a part of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of scary.
Yeah, when you said that, like, instantly, like, Hitler popped up in my head.
Yeah.
And he was just like such a good communicator with the people, and the people really liked what he said, and he said it in a way that made it seem like he was working with the people.
Yeah.
And that he was fighting for a larger cause, but it was at the same time it was so bad for, you know, the people that he was speaking against, and that just had a lot of traumatic, that created a lot of trauma for that demographic of people. And so I totally understand that.
I feel like Hitler is a really good example because it could probably be an example of all three. You know, where you have the echo chamber, where you have a group of people, and then you also, you know, same beliefs, and they are conforming their beliefs for the information that they have, and then they have a really charismatic leader. So Hitler is a pretty good example of all three of these. And there are lots more biases, but I feel like these are three that are pretty well defined for extremist groups.
Right. So we've got some background on just kind of extremism and what they kind of consist of, but I want to focus on as well is some answers to these biases and how we could kind of get past it, or, you know, begin to start talking about these problems. And so our expert Elizabeth, what do you have to share with us today?
Well, there are many different strategies that people can use, and of course some strategies work best for other people, some people than others, but some of the biggest strategies for overcoming extremisms are raising awareness, seeking out more information, and encouraging intellectual humility. So one of the first steps would just be learning how to recognize your own personal bias and how that bias could be affecting your beliefs and or your actions. After that, it's important to do research or have conversations with people who you may not agree with in order to get more perspective about their beliefs as well as your own. And this would hopefully allow a person with extremist views to take a step back and just think about what it is that they are feeling so strongly about. Not in like an invalidation way, but just more so they can recognize, okay, why am I having these really strong viewpoints toward this one thing,
Right.
and can I back it up? And then along with that, having humility and recognizing the importance of other views, that could also help prevent extremism.
Okay, so you say recognizing our own bias, and I feel like a lot of the time we don't really notice like what we truly believe in, and we're not sure how it's affecting the way we think. So could you speak more on humility and how we can, you know, start to dive deeper into how we understand our own bias?
Yeah, so I think the important thing is to recognize that, you know, when you're seeing the world and when you're seeing it through your eyes, so your reality tends to become confused with just what is reality in general. And so I think it's important to look at, okay, this is how I see the world, but how might they see the world? And I think that kind of puts you in a spot where you're saying, okay, let me put myself in these other people's shoes. And as for like the intellectual humility, I think that has more to do with like how you're thinking about how they are processing, and how you can see, okay, recognize this is my bias, and this might be how I see the world, but other people might see it completely differently, and I'm going to try to meet them with where they're at, and you can have discussions, or just try to be humble and meet with other people.
Right. Because I think we as people just feel like we feel like we want to know everything. We feel like we're okay with our own beliefs, And like you said, it's just important to know that everybody else also has a set of beliefs, and so it's good to gain perspectives and have those hard conversations, so you're expanding your set of beliefs and not just staying content. Do you have anything else on the subject?
Not for the broad view. I have a few more for like the different biases that we talked about, but yeah.
Okay.
So for the first example with the confirmation bias, I think the most important thing to do is to seek new information with that strategy. So just doing research, and hopefully that can allow people to recognize, like, you know, what you, like, your view isn't obviously the only one, so you can recognize if there's misinformation, or if you were presented with the misinformation, like, are you spreading that, or, you know, could it be harmful, or just, you know, doing research to make sure you avoid creating that extremist view in situations, and making sure that you know about a topic, not just on one view, but on multiple, so you're not just shutting out all the other views, and you're just staying open-minded, but also, you know, you do research, you know more about the topic instead of that one narrow viewpoint.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, extremism is becoming more prevalent, and I think because of social media, you know, we're just being exposed to a lot of negative like statements, and we have political people just fighting against each other. And, you know, I believe that there's a more positive way to go about it, but I kind of understand that each political person wants to gain voters and gain people on their side. But I do think it's just more, it's seen a lot more, and social media is also just on the rise, and more people are looking at their phones and consuming this information, whether negative or positive. And so, you know, I think extremism is still going to be around, it's still going to be prevalent, and we're still going to be dealing with it. But I think if we continue to have these conversations and bring up the topic, it can reduce some of these, it can reduce some extremists, and it can kind of allow people to understand that there's more to their perspective, there's more to just there's more than just how they think about things. There are a lot of perspectives out there, and it's important to gain it. And social media is dangerous.
So dangerous.
With that being said, that is our first episode of the Get Psyched podcast. Again, I'm your host, Emmanuel Blackshear. I'm here with extremist experts Sophia and Elizabeth, and we are calling it a day. Thank you.